Previously on the N3K channel, we hosted our server on a Windows 10 machine.
The dog has a giant fucking baton and he's in his mouth and he's chasing me with it. He's gonna beat me up. He's gonna beat me up.
But today, we host it on a Linux machine on a Docker container. So next time you try to get a job, the interviewer is gonna go like, "Ooh, you know how to work with Linux and Docker." And you'll say yes, like the good liar you are. So I'll quickly resume what we'll be doing today. We're gonna go get ourselves a SSH key. We're gonna go get ourselves a Linux instance on DigitalOcean, on Amazon, on some other Raspberry Pi you have lying in the house. We're going to transfer our build over there. We're going to install Docker and run our build on top of Docker. Forward some port, connect using the client on my computer. Yeah, we'll do that fairly quick. Let's go. First step, you'll need to have a command prompt that allows you to have SSH and also secure copy. So git bash does it. I really recommend you use git bash. In case you don't have one, just head over to git bash and download this first one. Now what this is going to do, it's going to give you a new command shell. If you head over to your Windows key, then type in bash. Here's mine, git bash. It's basically just another command shell. And in here, we're going to generate ourselves a SSH key. You might have one already, and if you have one, just use that one. To check whether you have one or not, head over to your Windows Explorer, to your user account. In my case, that's my user account. And then there's going to be a file or a folder called .ssh. If there's something in there, just go inside of it. And if you see a ID RSA pub, a public key, just keep that one in there. Don't generate. Don't go on with the next step. I'll do it quickly, but just don't do it, right? You already have a public key. In my case, since I want to show you how to do it, I'll go ahead and generate myself a new one. Okay, so if you don't have your SSH key, just like I do, right now, I've deleted the last one. You're gonna go ahead and type in keygen, SSH keygen T RSA, and then you can give it a name. I'll just use the default one. You can also give it a password. So every time you want to use your SSH key, you have to type in your password. I'm too lazy for that today, so no password. Hit enter twice, and then you're gonna have your SSH key. So you're gonna see a new folder has been created, .ssh, and here it is. Your private key, your public key. Never give out your private key, and the one you give out is of course the .public. Alright, now we have our key. We have to connect to a Linux machine through SSH, which means that the Linux machine must have SSH. Now that's the case for a machine you have on DigitalOcean, that's the case for Amazon Prime as well, not Amazon Prime, Amazon Web Services. But if you have your own Linux image that you put, say, on your Raspberry Pi, you're gonna have to install the SSH module on there. I think it's called OpenSSH, and then transfer your key over there. Yeah, I'm sure you can find a lot of tutorial that actually shows you how to do that. Now, let me go ahead and open up my DigitalOcean account. This is just like Amazon Web Services, so you're going to create yourself a new instance. In this case here, they call it a droplet, so a new cloud server is a droplet. I'll do that. I'll choose the least expensive one because I'm a cheap mod. I'm actually going to be running Ubuntu 16 and not 18 because I'm not familiar with 18. And let's go down here under New York. I do not want to have any special option. And then I'm going to add my SSH key. So in this case, I've just created my new one. Let me go ahead and new SSH key. You'll have to paste in the content of your public key. So back over here in my folder, in my .ssh folder, right click on this one. I want to open it with any text editor. In this case, I have Sublime. Copy this, and I'll be pasting it in here. You can give it a name, so tutorial Linux host, whatever. Just like this, once the machine goes up, I'll be able to access it using our key. Right. Now for the host name, I'll just call it Linux tutorial. You're going to call this, say, whatever the name of your game is, and server. Doesn't really matter what you call it if you figure that one out. Go ahead and create your instance, and it should be up and running in a moment. Now, back in our git bash, we are going to connect to that machine as soon as we have our IP, and the way we connect to it is using the SSH protocol. So let's go ahead and type in SSH. The name of our user is going to be root. It's always root at the beginning. And then you're going to connect to the IP. In my case, I have it right here in my screen, 104. 248, 120, 52. So let's see. It's still a bit early because the machine is booting at the moment. Okay, so it's gonna ask me if the host is fine. Yes. You only have to do that once. This actually created a new file called known host. And just like this, you are now connected to your cloud server. Okay, so right now on our left side, this is our cloud server. On the right side is my Windows machine, of course. What I'm going to do is head over to my server. This is my server right here. I'm going to make sure that I'm going under build, Linux. I'm building for 64-bit. This is a 64-bit machine. And I'm also building for headless mode. That's very important. So I'm going to go ahead and build this. I already built it, so let me just do that again, right? So new Linux build. And I'm going to save that in here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to zip the files we get from this build, and we're going to transfer that over to our cloud server. So here I am under desktop Linux build. I'm going to wrap these two things together, so the build itself and also the data for this build. I'm going to be sending it to a zipped folder, just like so. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit my Linux instance. And now I am back on my desktop machine. The green text over here, that's my desktop machine, my Windows machine. I'll be using the secure copy protocol to send my build over to this, right? So let me go ahead and do that. So SCP, the target being my Linux build. So let me go ahead and just drag and drop this one right in here. It's going to give me the full path. And then I'll be sending it over to root at the IP. So 248.120.52. And then I have to find where am I going to be saving it inside of the Linux machine. So 2 dot, and I'll be saving it under root, just like this. Now my command line kind of messed up here. For some reason the T appeared on the left, but it's working. I'll just make sure to show you the command again in a moment. So that was my command here if you disregard the T at the beginning. Sometimes it does that, not quite sure why. You know what? I think I can make the text bigger. I should have done that from the beginning. Oh well. Okay, so once our secure copy is done, I'm going to be connecting to the machine again, and I forgot the IP, so let me just go and look for it. There it is. So SSH, root, and then the IP of your machine. It's not going to be the same as mine, that's for sure. Let's go ahead and connect. If we do a ls for listing the file, you're going to see that our build is in here. Now, I recommend you do the exact same thing as I do, because if you use the same Docker file as I do, you'll need to have the server folder architecture. I'm going to make a directory, so make dir. This one's going to be called build. And now if you list, you're going to see that we have the build, and then we have Linux build, that's it. I'll be moving over my Linux build, so mv linux build.zip. I'll be moving it over to /build. So now, if you see, we basically took our zip file and we moved it inside of the build folder. So if we head over to build, so cd build, you're going to see it in here. Now, I want to be unzipping this, and to do so, unzip Linux build. I think we're going to have to install something. Yep, so we're going to have to install unzip. Let me do that. apt get install unzip. Right. Okay. Then from this point on, we can do unzip Linux build, and you'll see your whole build extracted right now. Okay, so now we have our build, we have our data, just like on this side, but we also have the zip file, so let's make sure we remove that. rm linux build.zip. Okay, at this point, we have our headless build for Linux on our machine. Now we need to install Docker and also Docker Compose, but those have prerequisites that are actually quite simple to do. The first one is that we need a user that has root privilege that isn't root. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. Add user. I have a user called Mike. Now they ask me for a password. I'll leave that blank. Actually, no, I can't. So let me just type in a password. And it's going to ask for more information. I'm not going to give any of that. Is the information correct? Of course it is. Right. At this point, we have our new user, but we need to give him root privileges. So we're going to type in usermod AG capital, or is that a J? I think that's a J in English. And then sudo and the name of your user, so Mike in my case. There we go. Just like this, we've created a new user that has root privileges. So I'm gonna go on that user by typing in SU for switch user, Mike. And then you'll see that I am using Mike at Linux tutorial. And from this point on, I'll quickly, very quickly skim through the tutorial for installing Docker on 16.04, which is what we have right now. So installing Dockery requires a couple of things. First, the curl command. I suggest you do the exact same thing as I do. I'm going to go on this page. You'll find the link in the description down below. And just copy that, paste it in your terminal. So what's happening right now is that the standard Ubuntu repo don't have the latest version of Docker, so we have to use theirs, which is why we're going through these steps instead of doing a simple apt get install. This is the first line I've copied, and now this is the second line I'll copy, paste, and then we're going to make sure to update. So sudo apt get update. Don't even need to type my password anymore. Okay, cool. Next up, we're going to have a look at the apt cache. Do I know exactly what I'm doing right now? I'm not going to lie, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm following the paper on the right quite well. Okay, and finally to install Docker, there it is. We can also then check if it's working by looking at the system, the service for this. So I'm going to copy that one just to have a look at our system, see if it's running. And it's active and running, so Docker is installed. Alright, so I've just exited this one using Control and C. Let's go ahead and now we have to install Docker Compose. Okay, that's the second link you'll see in the description down below. This one says how to install Docker Compose on Ubuntu. It's exactly the same thing, so we'll go over it again. We got only two commands to copy at this point. The first one is over here. We'll copy that, paste. Now do note that the version that we're installing here is 1.18 in my case. This is also what I'll provide I provide you the Docker file for 1.18. So if you're watching this in the future and you want to make sure it works, change that back to 1.18. They might actually switch it for something higher when they're ready, but in our case, that's what we're using. Okay, and then finally we're going to give some permission to Docker Compose, just like this with the other link, the other command. And we can also check for the version, so Docker Compose. Can I do that? Version, yeah, so 1.18. Good, so we have Docker Compose. From this point on, we have to type in a YML file. And that YML file is something I'll provide you. Now that YML file is something that I haven't written myself. It's something that my friend, a really good Linux guy, DevOps, has actually wrote for us, so thank you so much to him. He is Requiem on Discord. He's also a good buddy of mine in real life, so do the trusting. So just stay with me, we're almost done. If you go down in the description down below, you're going to find another file on my drive called n3k llpi server docker, just like this. We are going to extract this. This is the Docker file. If you want, you can also write them yourself. I'll just show you exactly all the files. It's basically, there's only one file here and then two in there. You can write that yourself. But I can also provide the zip link in the description down below. So inside of here, we are going to configure it here on the Windows before we transfer it over to our Linux machine. So you don't have to deal with nano. Right, so inside of here, the first one is dockercompose.yml. This is the one that's going to be hooked by Docker Compose. So let's have a look at this. Version 3.1, that's good. Service, Unity, that's good. Everything here seems fine. As for the port, now if you didn't use 26K in your case, then go ahead and change that. In my case, I also have 26.1 for web host, and I don't know if I'm allowed to do this here. Because I don't know, I'm gonna create two lines instead. That's how careful I want to be for this one. Right. So that's the first file. If you're trying to copy it, just go ahead and type all of that. Or just go under the zip file. That's the easiest part. Now next to the Docker Compose file, you'll find a Unity folder, and inside of there, a Docker file. Let me open up that one. So this one has information about the author and also tells you which package Docker will need to install to run a Unity build in this case. So these are the build you'll need. And then it's also going to give you a couple of information on what to do with our build. So this is kind of like a recipe. So as soon as you start your Docker, you're going through all of these lines, and first you're installing packages, then you're copying stuff over from one point to another, and yeah. Good. So this is only going to work if you use the exact same architecture as I did. So the root, build, and then we're going to put our build in there. If you have a different folder architecture, you don't want to put it in the root folder, then go ahead and change this here. This is what you have to change. In this case, it has been tailored around my needs, so definitely don't need to change anything there, and everything is quite good. Right, so next up, the entry point. Let's open this one up. This is where it's most likely going to change depending on which name you've put, and I don't think I called my server this way, so let's go ahead and have a look here. So my build was under root. Let me go in there. cd root. Okay, so permission denied. Let me do an exit so I go back to my root. cd root. Okay, then cd build. And it's called Linux build instead of server. But it's at the right path. So this is the right path for my server. I just need to have to change, I just have to change this name over here. So Linux build .86_64. I also have another thing to change a little bit further, which is exactly the same thing as the same name. And if you guys realize it, we are giving it a resolution on the screen, but that's a fake screen. That's actually for a fake display driver because it needs one. However, we're not rendering any graphics because we're running this in batch mode, no graphics, as we've seen in the Windows host tutorial as well. And on top of that, this is a headless build, so it would not show any graphic either way. Okay, so we've changed everything we needed. Let's go ahead and save this. And now I am going to re-zip this thing and send it over to my other, to my cloud server. So let me go ahead and do a send to zip. And I'll exit this one again, so I go back on my Windows machine. This is my Windows machine again. I'll do secure copy, so SCP. The target is this thing. And then I'm sending that over to root at 104, 248, 120, 52, 2 dot. I want to send that over to, let's just send that over to root, and if we have to move it, we'll move it there. Okay, so it's on my machine. Let's do SSH root and connect again. So 104, 248, 120, 52. Okay, so it's directly in my root folder, as you can see. Now, at this point, I will do an unzip on my zip file. And you will see that we now have our new folder in there. So what I'll do here is I'll first remove the .zip, just like so, with the rm command. And now we're left with these two folders. So right here, we have our build folder, and we also have our Docker configuration folder. What I'll do is I'll put my build inside of Docker, and then I think I'm gonna go one more level beneath. But let's start with just moving it inside of here. So MV for move, we're moving build, and we're moving it to, actually, we're moving build like this, and we're moving it over to this folder. If you do another ls, you'll find out that build is now gone. Let's head over to the configuration folder, and you'll see it's right in here. Now, let me just look at my Docker file. Okay, so according to this, we want to take our Unity files and just move it down another folder. So right now I'm under the Docker configuration folder, the first level. I have my build, I have Unity. I'm going to take my build, so move build, and I'll move it over to the Unity folder, just like so. And we should be good to go at this point. We're now ready to compose this thing. So the next command, I have it written somewhere here because I forgot about it, is docker compose up the build. Here it is. So docker compose up the and then build. We're going to be building this, see if everything works. Hopefully no error is found. And if there's an error, it's probably because of the path being wrong. So if you guys don't have this working, just make sure you put the folder in the right spots, basically. Let's see. Okay, so it's actually... Okay, so it seems like it's running. Let's have a look at our processor right now by typing in top, so T-O-P. And what do we have? I can barely see because my font is so big now. We have our build running, so that's our build right here. If you don't see this, it's probably because you didn't type the name of your build properly. If you see Docker running, but you don't see your build, it's really just because you didn't type that properly in our Docker files. Now as you can see, you see container popping up from time to time, so Docker is running, this is running. Everything is now ready to work. One problem, we haven't opened up our port on the firewall of the machine. So we could try connecting to this one, we know it's running, but we're never going to be able to actually have a successful connection simply because our port are not open. Now, how do we go and open the port? Well, just like in Windows, it's going to be different for everyone, depending on which host you're using. In my case, I'm using DigitalOcean. I'll show you how to do it in DigitalOcean. It's quite simple. Amazon service is also pretty simple. And if you're using, like, say, a Raspberry Pi, you're hosting it yourself, you're going to have to Google that one. I'm sorry about that. It's something that shouldn't be too complicated. Just look up how to open a port for Linux. Yeah, that should actually do it. You're going to have to modify the firewall. Okay, for DigitalOcean, I have to go on my machine, networking, manage my firewall, and then create a new role. So I'll create a new firewall. I'll call this one, say, server, or Linux server for UNet. Okay, finally can have space. Now, we want to allow SSH. You don't want to remove this one. This is very important. If you remove this one, it means that you can't connect via SSH anymore, and you're basically just locking yourself out. So don't remove this one. Now, what I'm going to be doing here is we're going to be allowing custom UDP connection for 26,000 to 26,001, like so. We could also allow TCP, because I think web are actually running on that. That was a comment I had in my video, so maybe WebSocket are actually running on TCP. Don't quote me on this, but it's something that someone commented on my video, so I want to make sure I have this one in there as well. In fact, if that's true, technically we would only need 26,001, and here only 26,000. But being safe, I'll leave them both. Right. And then you'll apply it to your droplet. You apply it to your machine. So in my case, Linux tutorial. Create, and let's see if that works. I will now visit my new firewall rule, and I'll look at the droplets. This is up to date, so technically my server should be ready. Just to make sure, I'll go in here, type in reboot, and force myself out of this machine. Okay, now at this point, we're going to go ahead and set our client up. So under my client, I have my client script. The IP is over here. This one is from my test earlier, so definitely didn't work. The IP I have for my machine is the following. So 104, 248, 120, 52. Okay, good. Let's have a look if I can connect to it again, see if it's already started up. And it seems like it is. If I look at the process, it's going to lower that font real quick. It's really annoying to me. There. If I have a look at the process, we should now have Linux build running. Okay, I give it enough time. Let's go ahead and click on play button and see if this works. Attempting to connect on this IP. We have connected to the server. It's been a success. We did it. We have the Docker container running. And if you guys remember, we rebooted this machine. So after rebooting, didn't have to do anything else. It just rebooted the Docker instance by itself, and it's running our build. Why is this cool? Why did we even use Docker? Maybe I should have said that before. It's simply because if your build crashed at one point, you will automatically have it rerun, unless you stop it manually. In our Docker file, we said we're going to be restarting this process unless we stop it. So if he stops by himself due to a crash, it's going to reboot, and it's going to be fantastic. Having this said, we've made it to the end of the first part of the LL API tutorial. And I don't actually know if there's going to be a second part to the LL API, because the second part might actually be in the new transport layer architecture, which is quite cool. Either way, it's just going to come out a little bit later if I decide to do that. But yeah, having that said, we did it. And now it's running on a Linux machine, and it's quite cool because I could leave this running all day and people from outside could connect to it. I could connect to it from anywhere, you know. Yeah, you got it. That's it. That's what we needed. I'll go feed my dog. He's been waiting on me. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Join the Discord. Join the group. Join membership. That's right, we got channel membership now. If you want to support us, that'd be great. And join us on the live stream on Saturday. Cheers.